Hello friends, in this video I will share with you how you can go about acing the Procter & Gamble technical interview. Now what I will cover in this video is 1. What is a technical interview? 2. Why is there a technical interview? 3. How to prepare for the technical interview? 4th, how should you go about answering the technical questions? And 5th, what mistakes to avoid. Now let me start by explaining what is a technical interview. Now by and large, Procter & Gamble doesn't have a technical interview or doesn't go about asking technical questions in the interview. A typical interview at Procter & Gamble is comprised of behavioral and situational questions, especially for very general roles like sales, marketing, finance, human resources, and so on and so forth. Procter & Gamble relies on behavioral and situational questions. They want to make sure they hire someone who can fit in the culture of their organization with regards to the key leadership principles they have. And if they can find someone like that, they will hire that particular individual and tailor him or her according to their needs. Especially Procter & Gamble also believes that they can kind of teach you anything. All they want is the right attitude. So they're looking for the right characteristics and right attitude, and hence that can only be evaluated by behavioral and situational questions. However, there are certain roles which do require Procter & Gamble to make sure that the person that they're hiring has some technical knowledge, some technical background, some technical education. So they don't want that person to come on the job and realize that this person needs to learn from scratch and has no clue. So for instance, I have no clue about coding. I'm a finance guy. If I go in a role where I have to do coding, I would just flunk on day one. Or otherwise, I'll have to do a lot of reading, a lot of learning, which will take a lot of time. And this is not what the company wants. So there are certain roles for which they want to ensure that the person has some technical understanding and some technical knowledge of the role. Now, these roles could be related to digital, or could be related to IT, could be related to engineering, could be related to mechanics, and so on and so forth. So for such roles, they expect you to have some understanding and some knowledge that is related to the field itself. However, the best thing here is that P&G will call out whether or not a particular interview is a technical interview or not. So when they're scheduling you for an interview, they'll let you know that this will be a technical interview. Or they could even schedule like 1.5 hours to say the first hour would be a standard interview and the next half an hour would be technical interview. This allows you to kind of be prepared and know what to expect. So the normal interview is all about behavioral and situational questions, for which I have made a couple of videos already on my channel. I will leave the link to the playlist here above. However, with regards to technical interview, this is the video, and here I will explain how you go about acing technical interview. Now let me talk about what to expect. Number 1, all knowledge that Procter & Gamble wants to ensure that whether the candidate has it or not is already listed in the job description. So you should not expect any question which is not already covered or addressed or mentioned in the job description. Now, if you are interviewing for a role which matches somewhat to a specific degree or a qualification, let's say if there's a marketing technology role which is very much similar to digital marketing, then it is important that you have some understanding of digital marketing. So try to go through some of the concepts that you learned in your course that you took in your college around digital marketing, even if those terminologies or those specifications are not listed in the job description. It would be nice to have some know-how and some understanding just because the title of the job demands for it. Now, number 3, which should come as a relief to you, is that they won't be taking an exam in the interview. They won't be asking you to run any SQL query. They won't be asking you for any formula or any coding test. What they would be essentially looking for is whether you know the definition of that particular term, like you understand it. Can you give an example of what it means, like a live example or a personal example, whether you understand it or not, just to have a grasp of that. And third, if you have had any experience using or performing that task in your past experience, would be nice to talk about that. So these are the only 3 things. Definition, which is whether you understand or not, any example for you to elaborate your understanding, and third, if you have used it or applied it in your past experience. Now let me talk about how do you prepare for the technical interview. 1 is make sure you go through the job description and pull out any technical terms or technology or systems that have been mentioned there. So things like Power BI, SAP, and so on and so forth. So make sure if there is mention of some systems, some technology, some technical term, you take a note of it and make sure you have some understanding of it. Again, you can define it, you can give an example to elaborate what it is, and can share something from the past experience as to how you've applied it or made use of it. Second source of knowledge for the technical interview comes from the screening interview that you have with the HR, where the HR calls you up and kind of explains you what the job or the role is about. They may use some technical terms there. They talk about some technology or some technicalities pertaining to the job. Take a note of all those things, because these are the things which may get asked in your technical interview later when you get to the technical interview round. Number 3 is go through your resume thoroughly, because there might be some achievement or some project that you've listed on your resume which may intrigue some interest by the interviewer who is taking your technical interview, and they would like to understand more on that particular project and they want to go deeper into that, and hence they would like to ask you as to whether you can explain this particular project and how did you go about this particular project, or how did you go about using this particular system that you've already mentioned on your resume, and where did you make use of it, because again it is mentioned on your resume. So it could be a very direct question on your resume saying, you've mentioned something, some project, can you take me through end to end as to how you went about executing this project and how did you use this particular technology or this particular technicality in order to solve the problem that you've called on your resume. So make sure you go through your resume before going in the technical interview and pinpoint any technical terms that you've called out or any technical projects that you've called out, and hence make sure that you have a complete grasp on them, because it would be very embarrassing if you have something on the resume and later if you are asked a question about that and you can't explain. So make sure that part is watertight. Next is to make sure that you refresh the key concepts that you've learned in your recent education, because you would have your education listed on the resume, and let's say if it's a technical education, let's say if it's digital technology expert, then they would expect you to know something about digital technology, and hence there might be a question around it. So make sure whatever you've learned recently in your education, and this would be primarily for those who are recent graduates, because when you're recent graduates there are more questions pertaining to your education, while when you're experienced individual there would be more questions pertaining to your experience. So if you have an experience which is not as deep as someone who's been in the industry for a couple of years, then the questions would be more pertaining to what education or certifications you have or mentioned on the resume. So make sure you brush up some of the key major concepts that you've learned in your education or in your certification. Lastly, in order to prepare for the technical interview, make sure you list down all the examples where you made use of your technical skills. So the technical skills that you either learned on job or in your education or certification, make a list of them. This could be, for instance, you building a website, or you using some digital technology, you using Power BI, SAP, or some other technology which is relevant to your field or relevant to your education. Make sure you make a list of all the times or all the instances where you made use of that technology, because when you will be asked a question pertaining to a particular technology, it would be best, as I said earlier, not just to define it and explain it, but also to give an example of where you have used that particular skill, because that would really bring or put a lot of stars to your interview, because you can demonstrate now that you just don't know about it, but you have also put it in use, so you have experience using that particular technology. Now, if they go about asking you to explain a particular project that you've done, make sure you follow the CAR model, where you explain the context and the action, then the result. I have a separate video made on this as to how you should go about answering a question which requires you to share an example or some past experience, and hence how you should go about acing that particular question. So make sure you follow that principle, follow that model, because that will really help you succeed in that particular question. Even if it's a technical question, make sure you use the CAR model, and here is the link to the video where I explain it further. Now let me talk about how you should go about answering the technical questions in the interview. Number 1 is to make sure you listen, understand, and then when you answer to the point. You don't need to take a lot of time expanding and blabbering about the concept, rather just make it as concise and as simple as possible. Number 2, no one has all the answers and has all the technical expertise. So in case you don't know about something, don't bluff. Just say you don't know, you don't have the experience. However, you are ready to learn. By the way, I have a separate video on how you should go about answering interview questions for which you don't have answer or experience from before. So check out that video. Now this video will help you frame the answer to the question where you don't have any knowledge at all. Using these techniques, you would still be able to come across as someone who's positive and someone who's ready to learn and has hunger and the right attitude to be on the job, even if they don't know a particular skill or a particular characteristic of the job. So please check out this video. Number 3, define the concept first. Second, use the example to elaborate further. And third, use an experience from the past in order to demonstrate that you've already used or previously used that particular technology and have good grasp on it. Number 4, in case you know a tool which is kind of similar to the tool that they are inquiring about, you can always say that the tool that you are inquiring about, I have no experience with that. However, I have experience with a different tool which is kind of similar and does the same job. One example that comes to mind could be if they are asking about whether you have any knowledge or understanding of Tableau. And you can say, no, I don't have any understanding of Tableau. However, I have understanding of Power BI, since they have certain features and certain functionalities which are quite similar. Another piece to remember is that while this is a technical interview, however, you still need to demonstrate your soft skills. And the most important soft skill here is communication. So make sure whatever concept you explain, you make it very simple. Don't explain it in a very complex way. They want to make sure and they want to understand that when you're on job and when you're working with the non-technical partners and colleagues, you're able to solve a difficult problem or explain a difficult situation in a very simple, concise way to people who are non-technical. So even if you're a technical expert and you have all the technical knowledge, but if you cannot communicate an issue or a problem in a very simple and concise way, then that is a challenge, that is a problem. And they would not want to hire someone or some candidate on the role where he or she is just a technical expert and is not able to communicate or articulate any of the issues easily or properly. Now this brings me to the last part of the video, which is the 2 key mistakes that you need to avoid. Number 1 is don't bluff. Don't make up if you don't know the answer to a particular question. It is okay for you not to have the complete knowledge. Not everyone has complete understanding or knowledge of everything. There might be certain tool or certain term which you are not familiar with or you don't have complete grasp on it. Just call it out that you don't know about it, and it is completely fine, as against bluffing about it and then going into a rabbit hole trying to answer and explain it. Second mistake to avoid is not to memorize any code, formula, data structure. This has 2 angles. One, the interview that you will have is not an exam. So they won't be testing you whether you have memorized a particular formula or memorized a particular code. It is not a test of your memorization. So that won't happen. They just want to know whether you have a conceptual knowledge of that particular tool or technology that is being put to use. Number 2 is, if you don't have knowledge of a particular tool or understanding of that particular tool already, either from your academics or from your experience, it is too late now. So memorizing something 2 or 3 days before the interview won't allow you to become an expert on it. So I would just rather go in the interview and say that, yes, I read about this particular concept or this particular tool 2 to 3 days ago when I was preparing for the interview. However, I don't have any expert knowledge and I've never used it. However, with that said, I am ready to learn on the job and I'm a fast learner. And then you can go about giving an example of how you've learned certain tools and technologies on the job and overnight, just because you had this hunger for learning and you have a steep learning curve. Hopefully this video was helpful for you to now be able to ace the technical Procter & Gamble interview. Thank you.